Touch me and I'll leave, the mail-order bride warned. But the cowboy who wed her called her bluff. The sun had just begun to rise over the dry hills of the frontier town called Red Hollow. The light was soft, but the land already looked hot and tired, like it had seen too many long summers. Dust floated in the air as a stagecoach slowly rolled into town, its wheels creaking and horses breathing heavily. People in Red Hollow were used to new faces. Travelers came and went all the time. But this arrival felt different. Inside the stagecoach sat a young woman named Evelyn Carter. She held a small leather bag close to her lap. Her clothes were simple but neat, and her face showed calmness that did not match the nervous energy of the town around her. She did not look out the window much. Instead, she kept her eyes low, thinking quietly. Evelyn was not coming to Red Hollow by accident. She was a mail-order bride, brought by a written agreement to marry a man she had never met in person before. The idea had been strange at first, but life had pushed her into it. She needed a new start, far away from everything she had left behind. But Evelyn was not like other brides. Before she agreed to come, she had sent one clear message in her letter. Do not touch me. If you do, I will leave. She did not explain it. She did not soften it. She only wrote it once, as if it was the most important rule of her life. Now, as she stepped down from the stagecoach, that rule stayed inside her mind like a shield. The town was small. Wooden buildings lined a dusty main road. A few horses were tied outside a general store. People stopped what they were doing to look at her. Whispers started quickly. Is she the new bride? Someone asked. She looks too serious, another person said softly. Evelyn ignored the voices. She had learned long ago not to let strangers decide her worth. She adjusted her bag and stood straight, waiting. Then she saw him. A man stood a few steps away from the coach station. He was tall, wearing a worn hat and a simple ranch coat. His boots were covered in dust, like he had just come from a long ride. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp and observant. This was Caleb Whitmore, the man she was meant to marry. He did not smile widely or act overly excited. Instead, he simply studied her for a moment, as if trying to understand who she was without asking a single question. Then he walked forward. You must be Evelyn, he said in a steady voice. Yes, she replied. A small silence followed. Not awkward, but careful. Caleb nodded once. I'm Caleb. Welcome to Red Hollow. That was all. No long speech, no forced kindness, just simple words. Evelyn noticed that immediately. Most people tried too hard when they met her. Caleb did not. That made him harder to read. A wagon stood nearby, ready to take her to his ranch. Caleb picked up her bag without asking and placed it gently in the back. He did not try to help her climb up. He only stepped aside, giving her space. Evelyn climbed into the wagon without needing assistance. As they began to move out of town, the sound of hooves and wheels filled the quiet morning air. Red Hollow slowly disappeared behind them, replaced by open land, long roads, and endless fields. Neither of them spoke for a while. The silence between them was not empty. It felt like something waiting to be shaped. Evelyn looked at the passing land. It was wide and unfamiliar. She wondered what kind of life waited ahead of her on this ranch. She also wondered about the man sitting beside her. Caleb kept his eyes forward, focused on the road, but he was not ignoring her. He was thinking. He had agreed to this marriage through letters and arrangements, just like she had. He expected a partner who would help build a home, someone who could share the struggles of ranch life. But the woman sitting next to him felt different. She was calm but distant, strong but guarded. It was clear she carried something inside her that she did not want to share. Still, Caleb did not ask questions yet. Instead, he simply guided the horses forward. After a long ride, the land changed again. A large ranch appeared in the distance. Wooden fences surrounded open fields. A house stood at the center, simple but solid. It looked like a place built with patience, not luxury. This is it, Caleb said at last. Evelyn looked at it quietly. Her new home, her new life. She stepped down from the wagon without hesitation. The ground beneath her boots felt real and firm. Caleb watched her closely for a moment. Then he spoke again, calmly. You can rest first. We'll figure everything else out later. Evelyn nodded slightly. She did not say thank you. She did not smile. But she also did not turn away. And that was enough for now. As she walked toward the ranch house, she could feel Caleb's presence behind her. Not close, not distant, just steady. Neither of them knew what kind of marriage this would become, but both understood one thing clearly. This was only the beginning. The morning after Evelyn Carter arrived at the Whitmore Ranch, the land was quiet. The sun rose slowly over the wide fields, and a soft wind moved through the wooden fences. Everything looked peaceful, but inside the ranch house, the silence felt different. It was not peaceful. It was careful. Evelyn woke up early. She had slept little. The new place still felt unfamiliar. The wooden room, the simple bed, and the faint smell of wood and dust reminded her that she was far from everything she had ever known. She sat for a moment on the edge of the bed, holding her hands together. Her thoughts were steady but heavy. She reminded herself of one thing again and again. Stay calm. Stay distant. Do not let anyone get too close, especially Caleb Whitmore. Outside, she heard movement. The ranch was already awake. Caleb was outside in the yard preparing for the day. He fed the horses, checked the fences, and moved with quiet confidence. He worked like someone used to responsibility. There was no rush in him, no wasted motion. Evelyn watched him from the window for a moment, but did not step outside. When she finally came out, Caleb noticed her, but did not stop what he was doing. "Morning," he said simply. "Morning," she replied. No smile, no extra words, just polite distance. Caleb pointed toward a small table near the house. "Breakfast is there, nothing fancy." Evelyn nodded and sat down. There was bread, eggs, and water. Simple food, but enough. Caleb joined her a few minutes later. He did not sit too close. He kept a respectful space between them. Evelyn noticed that. Most men tried to sit closer, talk more, or break silence quickly. Caleb did none of that. Instead, he ate quietly. The sound of forks and soft wind filled the space between them. Evelyn looked at him once or twice but quickly looked away. She remembered her rule clearly. Do not let anyone touch you. If they do, leave. She did not know yet if Caleb would test that rule, but she stayed alert. After breakfast, Caleb stood up. "I'll show you around the ranch," he said. Evelyn followed him without argument. They walked across the open land. The ranch was larger than she expected. There were horses in a fenced area, a barn filled with tools, and wide fields stretching far into the distance. The land felt alive but also demanding. Caleb explained things in simple words. "This is the barn. That's where we keep supplies. Over there are the horses. They need feeding twice a day." Evelyn listened carefully but said little. At one point, Caleb stopped near a fence. A board was loose. He fixed it quickly with practiced hands. "You'll need to learn a few things," he said. "Life here is not complicated, but it needs work." Evelyn nodded slightly. "I can learn." Her voice was calm, but firm. Caleb looked at her for a moment. "Good. That matters here." They continued walking. The silence returned again, but it was no longer uncomfortable. It was just part of their rhythm. As the day went on, Evelyn began helping in small ways. She carried water buckets, cleaned small areas, and organized supplies when told. She did not complain. She did not ask unnecessary questions, but she also kept her distance. Caleb noticed everything. He noticed how she avoided standing too close, how she never allowed their hands to accidentally touch, how she always paused slightly before responding to anything. There was something inside her that stayed closed, but Caleb did not push. Instead, he adjusted. He showed patience in small ways. If she hesitated, he gave her time. If she made a mistake, he corrected it gently. If she stayed silent, he did not force conversation. Days began to pass like this. Not fast, not slow, just steady. Evelyn expected tension. She expected pressure. She expected someone to question her rule, to challenge her space, to demand explanations. But Caleb did none of that. One evening, as the sun turned orange over the fields, they sat outside after work. The air was cooler now. The ranch was quiet except for distant horse sounds. Evelyn sat on one side of the porch. Caleb sat a few steps away. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Caleb said, "You don't talk much." Evelyn looked at him. "I don't need to." He nodded slightly. "Fair enough." That was all. No argument, no judgment. Evelyn looked away again, slightly confused by how simple everything felt with him. It did not match what she expected from a marriage. She had imagined pressure, questions, maybe even anger. But Caleb was different. Still, she reminded herself not to trust too quickly. Trust had cost her before. Later that night, as she lay in bed, Evelyn stared at the ceiling. The house was quiet. Caleb was in another room. She thought about the day, about his silence, about his respect for space. And for the first time, a small thought appeared in her mind. Maybe this will be different, but she quickly pushed it away, because she knew something important. Distance was safe, and safety was all she had ever known. The days at the Whitmore Ranch began to settle into a quiet routine, but nothing about Evelyn Carter's life felt truly settled. The land stayed wide and open, the work stayed steady, and Caleb Whitmore remained calm and consistent. Yet inside Evelyn, something slowly began to shift, even if she did not fully understand it yet. At first, she tried to keep everything exactly as before. She followed her rule carefully. No closeness, no trust, no emotional opening. She spoke only when needed, and always kept a safe distance from Caleb. But Caleb did not behave like someone who wanted to break her walls. He behaved like someone who was willing to wait outside them. That made things more difficult for her. One morning, the ranch was busier than usual. A small problem had come up with the water system near the barn. Caleb was already working on it when Evelyn arrived. She watched from a distance as he checked the pipes and adjusted parts with careful attention. Without looking at her, he said, "You can help if you want. Just pass me that tool." Evelyn hesitated for a moment. She was not used to being included so naturally, but she picked up the tool and handed it over. Their fingers did not touch. Caleb fixed the pipe and nodded. "Thanks." That was it. No extra words, no pressure, just simple teamwork. Evelyn walked away afterward, but something stayed in her mind. She had expected awkwardness or control. Instead, she was treated like someone capable. As the day continued, small moments like this kept happening. Caleb did not avoid her, but he also did not push her. He simply shared space with her in a quiet, respectful way. Still, Evelyn kept her emotional guard high. She often reminded herself of her rule. If someone gets too close, leave. But no one was getting close. Not physically, not emotionally. And strangely, that made her more alert, not less. One afternoon, a strong wind passed through the ranch. The sky turned cloudy, and the air felt heavier. Evelyn was outside organizing supplies in the barn when she dropped a box by accident. Items scattered across the wooden floor. She crouched quickly to gather them, frustrated with herself. Before she could finish, Caleb appeared at the barn entrance. He did not rush in. He simply walked over and knelt down a short distance away to help. Evelyn paused. "I can handle it." "I know," Caleb replied calmly, "but it will go faster if we both do." For a moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she continued gathering the items. They worked side by side in silence. Not too close, not too far, just sharing the same task. As they finished, Caleb stood up first. He brushed dust off his hands and looked at her. "You don't like people helping you," he said quietly. Evelyn stiffened slightly. "I didn't ask for help." "I know," he said again without judgment. "But sometimes help isn't about asking." That sentence stayed with her longer than she expected. That evening, something unexpected happened. Evelyn was walking back from the barn when she slipped slightly on uneven ground. It was small, nothing serious, but enough to make her lose balance for a moment. Instinctively, Caleb moved forward as if to steady her, but he stopped himself halfway. He did not touch her. He simply asked, "Are you all right?" Evelyn nodded quickly. "Yes." There was a brief silence between them. The air felt different, heavier than before. For the first time, Evelyn noticed something clearly. Caleb had been careful, not just today, but every day. He had been holding himself back, not because he did not care, but because he respected her boundary. That realization made her uncomfortable in a new way, because she had prepared herself for someone who would challenge her rule. But instead, she had met someone who followed it, and that made her question something she had never questioned before. Why did she need the rule so tightly in the first place? That night, Evelyn could not sleep easily. The ranch was quiet again, but her thoughts were not. She thought about Caleb's patience, his silence, his distance. He had never crossed her line. And yet, for some reason, she felt like the line itself was starting to feel different. Not weaker, just less certain. She turned in bed, staring at the wooden ceiling. Outside, the wind moved gently across the fields. And for the first time since arriving at the ranch, Evelyn Carter did not think about leaving. Instead, she thought about staying, even if she did not yet know why. Spring arrived slowly at the Whitmore Ranch, turning the dry fields into soft green land. The air felt warmer, and the wind no longer carried the same harshness as winter. Life on the ranch continued as usual, but something between Evelyn Carter and Caleb Whitmore had quietly changed. It was not sudden, it was not loud. It was the kind of change that built itself in silence. Evelyn still kept her distance, but not as tightly as before. She still followed her rule. No one should touch her. But now it felt less like a shield and more like a habit she had never questioned deeply. Caleb, on the other hand, remained the same. Calm, patient, respectful. He never crossed her line, never pressured her, and never tried to force her to open up. But he also did not disappear from her life. He stayed present in a steady, quiet way. One afternoon, Caleb called Evelyn to the porch. The sun was low in the sky, and the ranch was quiet except for distant horse sounds. "We need to talk," he said simply. Evelyn sat across from him, keeping her usual distance. "About what?" Caleb looked at her for a moment before speaking. "About us." That word made Evelyn tense slightly. "There is no us." she replied quickly. Caleb nodded like he expected that answer. Maybe. Or maybe there is something you are refusing to see. Evelyn looked away. I made my rule clear from the beginning. I remember, Caleb said calmly. And I respected it. His voice was steady, not angry, not emotional, just honest. There was a short silence between them. Then Caleb continued, but I think you built that rule to keep everyone away, not just touch. Evelyn's expression tightened slightly. You don't know anything about me. Caleb did not react. He simply said, maybe not everything, but I know enough to see you are always ready to leave before anything even happens. That sentence hit harder than Evelyn expected. She stood up slightly, defensive. That is not your concern. Caleb remained seated, still calm. It becomes my concern when I am part of the life you are building here. Evelyn froze for a moment. He continued, I did not force you here. You chose this marriage too. But I cannot stay in a place where I am always waiting for someone to disappear. The words were not harsh, but they were honest. Too honest. Evelyn felt something uncomfortable rise inside her. Not anger, something closer to uncertainty. For the first time, she did not have a quick answer. Caleb stood up slowly. I will not break your rule, Evelyn, but I will also not live behind it forever. He paused, then added softly, trust cannot grow where fear is always in control. Then he turned and walked into the house, leaving her alone on the porch. The evening air felt heavier than usual. Evelyn stayed outside for a long time, thinking. His words kept repeating in her mind. She had built her rule to protect herself, but now she wondered what exactly she was protecting herself from. Caleb had never harmed her, never pressured her, never disrespected her. And still, she kept waiting for something to go wrong. That night, sleep did not come easily. The ranch was quiet, but her thoughts were loud. Days passed after that conversation. Caleb did not bring it up again. He worked as usual, spoke when needed, and gave her space like before. But something in his behavior had changed slightly. Not his respect, his distance. It was like he had accepted something quietly. One evening, Evelyn found him near the barn, fixing a broken fence. She stood nearby for a moment before speaking. You were right, she said softly. Caleb paused his work, but did not turn immediately. About what? Evelyn hesitated. This was not easy for her. About me always wanting to leave. Caleb finally looked at her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Evelyn added, but I don't know how to stop that feeling. Caleb studied her for a moment, then said gently, you don't have to force it, but you also don't have to follow it blindly. That was all. No pressure. No demand. Just understanding. Evelyn looked at the ground for a moment, then back at him. Something inside her felt different, but she could not name it. Later that night, she stood outside under the open sky. The stars were clear above the ranch. For the first time since arriving in Red Hollow, she did not think about her rule immediately. Instead, she thought about Caleb's words, and about something she had never truly considered before. Maybe staying did not mean losing herself. Maybe it meant finding something she had never allowed herself to see. Inside the house, Caleb watched the quiet night through the window. Neither of them spoke. But for the first time, the silence between them did not feel like distance. It felt like possibility,